Well, hello, everyone. It's Lisa Nirell, and welcome to the September 18th live stream. We are broadcasting today from Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, as well as YouTube. So it's great to see you all. And remember that we are waiting for you to tell us where you're from, because we will be taking your questions throughout this live stream. Notice I use the word live stream versus live stream, because this isn't only about your business. This is about your entire life, because the habits you practice in your marketing and in how you lead your organizations trickle down into every aspect of your day. So it's all about helping you create a better business and a better life. Now, let me tell you what we're up to today. I'm going to be sharing with you what I call active recovery. How can marketing help you bounce forward during and after the pandemic? And I really hope you enjoy this session today. I've been working on this session specifically for people who either are professional services providers themselves, or they are in the business of providing professional services as an add-on to their business-to-business products. So I'm really hoping that you will be able to garner some new ideas from this session. I did two things before this session. The first one is I spoke with dozens of members of the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches community, and I vetted the topic with them and found out what's keeping them awake at night. What kind of challenges are they running into in running their coaching or consulting business? So that was the first thing I did. And then I also bring to you some knowledge from a result of speaking with over 75 CEOs and CMOs of both professional services and B2B companies. So I trust that you will get some great value out of this today. So I first want to go ahead and bring up my some of the things I'm going to be covering today, and bear with me a second here as I bring this forward. And we will show you some things we're going to be focusing on today. Okay, great. Do you know how much fun it is to learn new technology? I have been learning so much about hardware, software, faster internet, installing routers. It has been a wild ride. So welcome to my live stream. Remember, I'm checking out the live stream as we go here. We have Joyce from Texas joining us today, and it looks like we have a few new people joining us from LinkedIn. Okay, let's talk about where we're going from here. We are going to be helping you with a few things. One, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the three biggest challenges that I'm hearing from leaders, especially CMOs, during the COVID challenge. We're entering the 7th month of COVID. So I want to tell you what I'm hearing. Second, I want to talk to you about what I mean by active recovery, and then share with you why process does not need to be a nuisance, and why some people think marketing is annoying, it's beneath them, it is something you only do when you're desperate. I have heard all the excuses. So I'm going to share with you the most common ones that you either need to address or let them continue to haunt you. And finally, how do we strengthen our growth mindsets? And remember, I'm waiting for your questions. I'm going to stop and look and continue to view the live stream questions. Oh, hello, Philip from Northern California. Great to see you. Now, let me start with a riddle. What do death, taxes, and marketing all have in common? Okay, you ready? See, it's Friday. I'm checking to see if you're still alert. What do death, taxes, and marketing have in common? Well, they're historically condemned, and yet they're universally practiced. And if you are someone who runs your own business, who owns a professional services firm, or you're some kind of consultant, any kind of consultant, a coach, an accounting firm, a lawyer, this session is specifically for you, because most of you do believe that marketing is historically condemned and universally but yet universally practiced. So it's one of those love-hate relationships. I am a provocateur. What I'm going to be sharing with you is contrary to what I see in most professional services firms, and why there is such a huge line of demarcation between the struggling consulting firms and professional services firms and the ones who are flourishing right now. And I first want to define active recovery. What you're looking at here is a photo taken from one of the 10 swims I did, the 10 swim competitions I did when I once lived in Central Oregon. This is a photo from one of my favorite places called Elk Lake. Elk Lake is a gorgeous lake. They don't allow any motor boats on the lake except small paddle boats, small fishing boats. And I love it because it is one of the cleanest lakes and one of the most breathtaking lakes on the planet. And I have swum in probably 18 different countries, so I can speak from experience. It is an annual open water swim, and my favorite swim was always the Friday night 2-mile swim around the lake. And one of the reasons I was successful, and most years I placed in the top 5 for my age group, was because I practiced active recovery. And active recovery is what happens when you temporarily act at a lower intensity of speed rather than remaining overstimulated or stopping altogether. Active recovery is what athletes do after an intense workout or after a race. So what I would do when I finished my race, I would come out of the water and I was, my heart rate was at like 180 or 190. It was very high. But what I would do is I would take a big gulp of a sports drink, and then I would go right back in the water. And I would swim to decompress. So I would move at a steady pace just to make sure that my muscles and I didn't get all cramped up after my swim race, just to kind of practice what they call active recovery. And so much like my swimming, during this pandemic time, when a lot of my clients do not want to buy anything, they're holding on to their cash, or they're only willing to spend a small amount of cash, it doesn't mean I stop marketing. It doesn't mean that I put the pedal to the metal and force people to buy something. No, there's this stage of active recovery, right? I have time, a little extra time, to be able to refine my marketing processes, to revisit my go-to-market strategies, to revisit my messaging to the world, and to reevaluate the products and services in my portfolio. Some of them are no longer relevant. I made changes to my portfolio and my messaging within 3 weeks. So I want to ask you, as we're going through this, what are you doing to practice active recovery in your go-to-market and in your overall marketing efforts? So those are the questions. And I also want to welcome Thomas from Sweden. Thomas is joining us from Sweden today. So we'll talk about these active recovery strategies. The 3 I want to talk about start with mindset, your marketing process, and your messaging. And I'm not going to get into a long exercise today about messaging, because that could take a multitude of live streams. But I do want to share with you 3 organizations that I think really get it right, that have thriving services businesses. So we're going to talk. And by the way, I'm going very quickly today. If you feel like, hey, I wanted to go back and find out more from Lisa, send me an email. I will send you the slides. Just send me an email to lisa@lisanirell.com and just put in the subject line, live stream, or send me the slides, and I'll make sure that you get the slides today. Good. So let's talk for a minute about what I mean by mindset. One of my favorite topics when we had our recent discussion with the Marshall Goldsmith coaches was, what is our mindset as we go through COVID-19? And as you look at people in your own community, whether they're your clients, whether they're your coworkers, or even, yes, your family, it's an interesting question. Who are they during COVID-19? Now, you know people who spend their time complaining about the government and how they're handling COVID-19. You know people who are taking every single email message and forwarding it to you about the latest news from the CDC or from the White House. And you know people who hoard toilet paper. My hope is that you are none of those people, because that is not a growth mindset. That is a fear mindset. That does not fuel a flourishing business. There are people you may know who are in the learning zone who say, you know, before I start spreading news about the latest tests for COVID-19, the latest drugs being tested, or the latest news from Dr. Fauci, I want to make sure that I evaluate the information and make sure that it is actually news that is not fake news. I catch my emotions before I start ranting on social media. I am able to stop over consuming the news. I know my line of demarcation between being informed and being inundated. There is a fine line, and every one of us has a different line. And I'm hopeful that each of you are now dancing either on the precipice between the learning zone and the growth zone, or you're living full out in the growth zone. Because this is an area where I could spend hours talking to you. I look at my own clients in the marketing leaders communities. We have private peer groups of CMOs, and I listen for who in that community is living in the present while also focusing on, what are the future needs of our customers? Am I showing empathy with my employees? Because I know a lot of you have employees who are really not too productive right now. They're trying to juggle managing homeschooling with their day-to-day jobs. They're working from home, and they're dealing with an elderly parent or family member. You know, they're very distracted. How are you showing empathy? How are you thanking and appreciating people behind the screen? You know, the last thing you want to do is be like that old couple sitting on a park bench in New York, and the wife, they've been married for 50 years, and the wife turns to the husband and says, you know, I'm ready. I want a divorce. And the husband says, what do you mean you want a divorce? We've been married for 50 years. And the wife turns to him and she says, you know, in all of our years, you hardly ever tell me how much you love me. To which the husband says, well, of course I love you. And if anything changes, I'll get back to you. Well, the same treatment of employees is a sign that you are not in the growth zone. So I want to show you that only because it's easy to fall into the fear zone when we surround ourselves either with people who live in the fear zone or with too much information. So I wanted you to think about, where do I spend my time and who do I want to be? Because if I live in the fear zone or I've given up on the learning zone, this is what can happen. This is what can happen. We've got some, by the way, some comments coming in from Cliff in Oregon. We have Joyce in Texas. So keep sending those comments and thank yous on your live stream. This is all here to help you. And when we live in the fear zone, or we're not yet comfortable getting into the growth zone, these might be some of the mindsets that we allow ourselves to dominate, that dominate our day-to-day lives. So, and again, I'm not here to attack or criticize. I'm sharing with you what I have heard for the 18 years I have been running my own firm. I've been advising thousands of CMOs and marketing leaders and business owners who run professional services and consulting practices. So this is a common set of practices that I want, or common set of mindsets that hold us into the fear zone and hold us back from taking action and practicing active recovery. Oh my gosh, marketing planning, it's difficult. It's expensive. Only big companies do this. Or it didn't work last time, so why on earth would I even bother? Now, there are a couple of others that I hear, especially from really well-educated executives and coaches. Executive coaches oftentimes make very little money because they have this thing called, I don't have the right certifications in marketing. I don't have a PhD or an MBA to move forward with this new marketing plan. So, I need to go get more education. I was in a meeting with my peers the other day, and a couple of them outed themselves, and they said, I do have a perfectionist mindset. I don't have the perfect marketing plan yet, so I can't proceed. I can't go forward and put together a webinar yet. I need this thing to be perfect. It's just not right. I don't have enough LinkedIn followers. So these are some common things that I hear that I want to challenge you on is, are you letting your mindset hold you back? Is that happening to you? And by the way, if it is, my suggestion to you is to just step back for a minute, be that observer and say, oh, which of these mindsets do I allow to hold me back in my business? Now, I'm not telling you these things because I'm a cheerleader and I think, oh, just have a positive mindset about marketing and all will be well. No, that is not my intent at all. My intent is to ask you, are your mindsets holding you back? And if they are, how can you conquer those mindsets and not necessarily fall in love with marketing? I'm not here to tell you to fall in love with marketing. I'm asking you to consider, what could marketing do for me if I treated marketing with the same process and the same rigor as I treat my financial planning, my operations, my information technology? Do you back up your files in your computer? Of course you do. So why would marketing not get the same respect and the same process orientation as all the other functions in your company? And that's exactly why I want to suggest that marketing can be a process. And when you have a process, you can at least learn to accept and embrace the process, even when your mindset says, I don't have enough education. And that's why this model from someone whom I adore and respect, Robert Middleton, can be such a helpful model for you. Oh, and by the way, big wave to Randy in Florida. Randy, welcome to the live stream today. I know Randy's owns a services company. I hope this is helpful for you today, Randy. And reminding people, post your questions. We're going to take as many as we can before we wrap in 10 minutes. So let's talk for a moment about a marketing process. This process is really powerful for people who market services of any type. The model you're looking at comes from Robert Middleton, who owns a firm called Action Plan Marketing. A friend of mine, a colleague who certified me in the process known as marketing ball. Now, for those of you watching from the United States, you all know about baseball, and this is metaphorically tied to baseball. I won't have time to cover a process that usually takes me 1 to 2 hours to discuss with my clients. However, I wanted you to at least understand the model from a high point or a high level. Marketing is a lot like baseball. If you learn how to play the game, your life and your business can be much more satisfying, and you can create a steady stream of business and opportunity. So as you can see, the dugout is where you figure out who is my perfect client, what are their top problems or issues, what outcomes are they looking for, what kind of solutions, and is there a story I can tell of how I have helped similar people address that same problem. So a lot of people just want to get out there and, build a Facebook page, or be more active on LinkedIn, or run a webinar, or have a better website. But the problem they run into is they didn't get it right in the dugout. You cannot earn the right to play marketing ball until your message is going to resonate with your intended audience. And I spend loads of time with people just getting themselves prepared and working in the dugout. And with that, they can then play the game. It can take you hours, weeks, maybe even months to go from home plate to first base, where people stop treating you as a stranger, but they start to receive information from you, and you build up your trust and credibility. You start to get their attention. And then hopefully on first base, then they become more and more familiar with you. They might ask for more information, and they might want to have an experience of you, as in attend a webinar, a live stream, or maybe ask you to do a small engagement with them just so they can get to know you. Or they read a book of yours and they get really jazzed about your message and your value. That is going from the dugout to second base. By the time you get to second base, you are ready. You know you're ready to start having a selling conversation with them when they say things like, I think I have an issue I need to explore with you. Or, I'd like to talk with you about possibly doing business with you. And that's when the selling process begins on second base. And again, I don't have a ton of time to get into a selling process discussion, but I at least wanted you to know you haven't earned the right to sell, to be in a selling conversation until you've made it to second base. So again, send me an email if you would like more information about this model, but we're not going to be able to get into great detail. My point today is to leave you with the possibility that marketing is not a nuisance. You don't need a master's degree in it. You don't need everything perfect. You're not an imposter. And your clients at this stage, especially during the pandemic, are not looking for perfection. They want results. They want to know one thing. How will I be better off if I work with you? That's their number one question. And if you can just get that kind of message right, you are on your way to really practicing active recovery. Oh, I also want to welcome, oh my gosh, we have Vicki in from Atlanta. So glad you could be with us, Vicki. Now let's talk about what challenges and priorities you might consider addressing when talking to your potential audience. These are the 3 that I'm hearing the most commonly among my clients. And I touch and influence more than 15,000 executives around the world based on my current audience. So when I'm speaking and doing virtual keynotes, or I am advising our CMO peer groups, there are 3 areas that they talk about all the time with me. Number 1, how can I protect the safety and health of my employees. That is a huge issue. Now, over 74% of people recently surveyed said that they're coming back to work, that they're going back to an office. That was actually a bigger number than I expected. But people and C-suite executives are very concerned about maintaining the safety of their people and their employees. You're seeing this especially in manufacturing plants right now. The second challenge that we're hearing from people are around protection is engagement. How do we maintain engagement of our employees during this difficult time? I mentioned earlier, think of all of your customers or clients who are multitasking and not feeling like they're doing it too well. Parents trying to homeschool. People with elderly parents or relatives. People who are fighting for bandwidth in their home office. I learned how to install a high-speed router 2 weeks ago. Now, my cat does not currently use any digital devices, but bandwidth is really important right now. So I had to upgrade. Well, imagine the number of families all working from home, fighting over bandwidth. So you've got people in your customer community, in your potential audience, who have all of these brain slots being completely occupied. Now, finally, they want to preserve their cash. What can you offer to help your C-suite clients preserve cash or use the cash that they have in a more efficient way? I'm working with a $7 billion company right now. They need to optimize marketing right now. They have a limited staff. Their talent needs to be upskilled in the area of go-to-market strategy and messaging. And they are not able to go hire a boatload of more employees. So they're going to use my team to optimize the efficacy of their existing marketing strategy team. So this is a much more cost-effective way for them to do that. I've worked with over 100 organizations in those areas, and my team member has worked with about 130. So together, 230 organizations of experience is going to help them accelerate and optimize their cash. And finally, my best clients, my C-suite clients, are really good at preparing for the recovery from the pandemic. So where can you help your clients address these challenges? So that's something for you to consider. And those are the areas I wanted to cover with you today. And I'm going to share with you as we wrap a couple of companies that do this really, really well. And I want to give them some kudos, because when I work with clients, I am constantly keeping an eye out for websites that are effective at positioning themselves and essentially allowing buyers to weed themselves out and figure out when they go to a website, is this kind of company for me or not? So take a look at 3 that I really enjoy. I think these people have done a bang-up job of being very clear on who's their perfect client. They're in the dugout of marketing ball and they know who their audience is. I think Jeffrey Shaw has a terrific website. Here is somebody who spent a couple of years in the dugout getting his message clean, and now his business is exploding. And all he asks is one question on his home site. Are you wasting time trying to satisfy customers who will never be satisfied? So he helps small businesses address that. I believe Colleen Francis does a terrific job. She has a book called Nonstop Sales Boom. And her page says very clearly, put an end to boom and bust sales cycles once and for all. So if you have a company that's experiencing ebbs and flows or peaks and valleys in your selling cycles and your pipeline, her book can address that. And then finally, Patty Lawrence owns a company. She's a CFO consultant for hire called Turbo Execs. First thing you see on her website, some accounting image, and then out of control growth or chaos. She puts it right out there and says, you know, if you're experiencing lots of chaos or you're growing too quickly, she can help you corral your financial scenario and help you get back in control. So these are just some examples I wanted you to have today to say, first of all, is my mindset serving me or holding me back? Second, can I surround myself and create a marketing process that is going to serve me well and really work for my business? And then finally, is my messaging, how strong is my messaging, and how strong and how much is it serving me or undermining me? So these are a few things I wanted you to consider today as we wrap up. Now, a couple of last things I'm going to ask you to consider. First of all, come back and visit us again, because we have live streams the first 3 Fridays of every month from 1:30 to 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time. We are live streaming from YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, so you can join us. Now, my next live stream includes Martin Lindstrom. Now, a few weeks ago, Martin joined us. He is a world-class culture and branding expert. He's in Switzerland. He's worked with world-class brands ranging from Lowe's to Lufthansa. And he will be talking with us further about a topic that's been really hot right now, which is how brands can get empathy right. So he and I are going to put our heads together and share with you some brands that are doing it well to help you figure out how your organization fits. And so just come back, make sure you're following me on LinkedIn. And if you ever get lost, just go to LinkedIn, put hashtag LN Live for Lisa Nirell Live in the search bar, and you'll be able to see the live stream pop up on your screen or on your mobile device. And then finally, if you found today useful, make sure that you go to my website and join on the website. Go to the Mindful Marketer bonus page. There's the link right there, themindfulmarketer.com/bonus. I have put together 6 free tools to help you bounce forward during the pandemic. Some great planning tools, some mindfulness tools, and even a couple of surveys and quizzes. These are all complimentary to help you bounce forward during the pandemic. So I hope you'll consider doing that. Well, I think my time is up today. So make sure that before we wrap up, I want to share with you a story that I hope will inspire you as you go forward to the weekend. In 1931, while visiting New York City and he was crossing the street, Winston Churchill was hit by a car that was going over 30 miles an hour. Churchill suffered a severe head wound and he had cracked ribs. Thankfully, he retained his consciousness and he made this huge effort to make people think that he was to blame for the accident. You know, this was the time when the Depression era was starting to take hold, and he was very concerned that the publicity from the accident would damage the gentleman's reputation who had hit him with his car. And he was very worried that it would long-term damage his job prospects. So he offered the man some money, believe it or not. And later, when Churchill wrote a news article about the experience, he said the following, and I quote, "Live dangerously, take things as they come, dread not. All will be well." So let me leave this by asking you, how can you channel your inner Churchill during this time of active recovery? So until October 2nd, I hope you will stay sane and you will apply one of these key habits that you learned today. And until I see you again, October 2nd, be well. Thank you.